Hi, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the Love and Lightning podcast. We are here to continue the conversation that we had last time and kind of getting into the nitty gritty of creating that self ritual and the self awareness when it comes to building your spiritual practice. So I'm Dr.LA Campbell. I'm here with Maestra Paula Leeper, and we're going to share some more information about this process. But to get things started, let's open it up like we always do and have Maestra Paula sort of set the intention for the session with a prayer.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon. Take a nice deep breath. We're going to set our intention, invite in the cardinal directions. As we settle into our breath, we open our energies and open the energies to the east direction, the place of light, the place where the light enters the body through the tonali, comes into our heart space and comes into our belly and into our body. We invite in the energies of the grandfather, Tata Tonantu, for the sun and the light to give us that invitation to connect with nature, to connect to all that is, that everything has a soul, and that we remember and exercise that gratitude that everything does have a soul, everything has a spirit, everything is living. We invite our energies into the west direction and have those energies come into our being, come into our essence, the energy of fire, the energy of our heart, the energy of releasing and letting go, that as the sun sets, that one day we'll set too. One day our sun will go down. And so just remembering that during the day, that everything that happens, at the end of it, we just let it all go. This is the place where we call to some of our well ancestors, our feminine warriors, the women warriors. Begin to remember them in your life. Remember the things that they went through, the things that they may have prayed for you. The things that you're experiencing now may be some of the things that they experienced. What would have been their prayers? What would have been the words that they said to Creator about you? So just remember them. Remember the women warriors in the space. We call to the energies of the south direction and invite the energy of our mind, the energy of the young warriors, the young male warriors, the masculine warriors. We give our love and our gratitude to the masculine and what they're going through, what they are experiencing. We call your energies to us to give us the things that we need to also be warriors, but also for our inner child, for recalling and remembering our visions, remembering our personal power. We call to the energies of the north direction, the place of earth, the place of our bodies. We ask for our grandmother energies to come and whisper words of wisdom and encouragement into our ears. We ask for your love. We ask to see and feel and know your unconditional love. In this place, we ask for our well ancestors to come and join us. We ask for our guides, our spirit guides, our helpers, our guardian angels, all of those beings that are here to help us to walk this earth life. This earth school is hard, and we need your help. And we ask for that. We ask for our words to be a blessing in this podcast, to be an encouragement, to give you reasons and give you values, and to remind you that you can do hard things. And we ask that the ancestors speak through us to help us to remember all of those things. And to the cosmic gourd, the place of all knowledge and all wisdom to be poured into us, to be poured through this podcast to encourage the rest of the Earth students here. And to Mother Earth, thank you for allowing us to be here on the earth. Thank you for allowing us to walk on your belly and to be good stewards of your land, to take care of your plants, to take care of the air. Help us to remember our place on this earth, and to our own hearts, May we receive all that we need from Creator, from our guides, from our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our warriors. All Mateo, and so it is.
All right. Episode 2. So if you missed the first part of this, what we began looking at was how do we kind of start taking steps to create ritual, or ways that we can do that, and how to start with self and then kind of work that into our process for generating the day, whether that's ritual, spiritual practice, whatever term you want to use. It's kind of that process. And last time we looked at how to do body scanning for the self, and then how to create that sacred space. So we're going to pick up from there. We're going to move on into the next stuff. So if you're picking up on this one and you haven't listened to those two, you might want to go listen to that one first before you listen to this one, just because it's context for where we're going here. So the next thing we were going to look at is, since we've created in the process of body scanning and creating sacred space, what kind of questions do we need to ask ourselves, either on that daily basis or as part of that process? Because this is just helping us to go within and to find that introspection that we need to really build and grow and things like that. So Paula, why don't you start on this one, and then just talk about the kind of questions that you tend to ask yourself as part of your daily process of getting your intention going.
Well, the first question I generally ask myself is, did I get enough sleep?
Does anyone know?
Is, how am I feeling in my body? How am I feeling in my mind? How am I feeling in my spirit? So I'll ask myself all those questions, kind of going through that quick little body scan just upon rising first thing in the morning, giving a good stretch and saying, how's my mind? How's my body? What's going on? Let's get ready for the day. Sleep is really important for, it sets up your whole day for, are you going to have enough energy to do what you need to do? Or do you need more rest? So those kinds of questions are they seem very basic, but it's important that you acknowledge yourself and that you acknowledge your breath. And that as you go out and you greet the sun, inviting that light into your body and saying, I am so grateful that I woke up this morning. If I'm not feeling grateful that I woke up, I am going back to bed. I'm going to start over. So having that gratitude, creating that space of the gratitude, those are just some very basic questions that I ask myself. A little bit later in the podcast, we're going to go through the medicine wheel and some very specific questions that you can ask yourself to set up your day, set up your week, set up your month, set up your business. I have different questions that I ask when I come to my sacred space here in my office, or my sacred space, or coming to my altar. When I'm coming to my altar, I'm going to make sure that it's clean, that the ancestors are fed, with water, food. I give the first bit of coffee to them in the mornings. I put some fresh fruit on there, maybe some fresh vegetables. If I made some special food, I'll put something up there. So there are lots of opportunities to talk to your body, talk to your mind, talk to your heart, talk to your spirit, talk to your altar, talk to those sacred spaces. Everything that we do can be a ceremony. Everything can be a ritual. If we are just going through our day without really taking time to be in gratitude or be in observance, then we're just moving through the motions and we're really not present. So I think the point of all of this is to bring us into that present moment. Is yesterday I had a knee ache. Today it doesn't hurt. I just made that part up. I don't really have a knee ache, but but it is a practice of greeting the sun, bringing in that gratitude in the morning, setting your day up, but at the end of the day, letting it go. So that when you wake up the next morning, you're like, what are we doing today? And that is one of the questions I do ask creators. What are we doing today? Those are some of my gratitude, some of my prayers, some of my petitions is, I want to make sure that I've made space for myself. I've made space on the altar, and I've made space for spirit to lead me through the day instead of me just going on autopilot. I think way too often people are just on autopilot because we live in our trauma and we live in the past and we live in a state of dysregulation. So this will help us to regulate and to bring us into the present moments. How about you?
Yeah, so mine is in the question kind of after that is how to go about setting intention. Mine are probably going to start to merge together. Because the one thing that I try to do every day is when I wake up and kind of do the same thing and I'm going through asking my questions, that's going to determine how I set my intentions for that day too. Because I always want to try to, if I'm in a place that I don't feel particularly empowered, then I like to set intention to move me into more of an empowered state and more of a positive state. Because if I'm not careful, then just from lifetime programming, I have this bad habit of falling back into that negative self-talk, and I'm really trying to leave that behind because it doesn't serve me. So I'll start with questions. You said this one, how am I feeling today? And by that, I don't just mean emotionally, but I mean, how does my body feel? How does my mind feel? How does my heart feel? I sometimes even look at my dogs and I'm like, well, how did they feel today? Because there's sometimes their energy is often a reflection of me. They pick up a lot of stuff with me. So if I look at them and say, how did they feel? And of course I talk to them and ask them, how do you feel? Then it's like that can give me input about what they're picking up for me, so that I may have to go in a little deeper and go, I'm not aware of something that maybe I'm sending out there energetically. I also ask, what am I thinking? How am I thinking today? So if I wake up and I'm like, and the first thing in my mouth is, oh, I'm so tired. Okay, that's probably not where we want to go, but it happens. So then it's like, okay, let's maybe reframe that a little bit and say, immediately move in and say, man, I'm glad that my knee doesn't hurt today because it did hurt yesterday, or something like that, where you can kind of start to reframe and move it into more of that positive thing. What's my energy level like today? Because I find for me, being super empathic and being a medical provider and being around people with lots of chronic conditions and neurological conditions and autoimmune disorders and things like that, it's real easy, even though I have a lot of perfected techniques for not absorbing their energy, the reality is I'm going to absorb some of it. So I need to look at myself and say, what's my energy today? Because that comes back to, did I get enough sleep? And sometimes I don't, right? So I have to go back and look at that process, and I've got to say, okay, what is my energy like? And then what can I do? Is it something do I need to change my eating habit today to change my energy? Do I just need to change my mindset to change my energy? Do I need to just suck it up and get up, take my dogs to the park for their walk in the morning, and just start my gratitudes while I'm there to kind of alter that whole process? Because it's for me, that can be a really big deal. Because I know that I'm going back into a situation where I'm just going to expend all that physical and mental energy again. And so I have to find a way to recoup some of that and kind of find that place of balance before I go do that again. Okay. What am I focusing my thoughts on? And this is where that negative self-talk thing comes in. So I want to make sure that my thought process, that I'm not fixated on something that happened in the past that obviously is over and I can't change at this point. All I can change is how I react to it. That I'm not ruminating on things that I don't need to, because it's real easy to get into that inner head voice, the negative Nelly in there that's tearing you down. It happens to everybody. So I always try to pay really close attention to where my thought process is going, because I'm a big thinker, and that's just part of me. And so I need to be aware of that, because I have to make sure that's balanced with emotion, and it's balanced. The energy parts of that are balanced too. I may ask, if I'm talking to myself, I might ask the question, well, what do I feel like I'm lacking? Not that I want to be in lack. I don't want to think I'm in lack. But if I'm in that mindset, I might say, what do I think I'm lacking? because that'll help me to turn around. Again, introspection, figure out what my inner child is grumbling about and how to turn that around into a positive thing. So I can say, but you're not really lacking that, you know? I also will ask, having been a former type A for many, 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 many decades, what's distracting me or what's worrying me? Do I have that sort of subcurrent underneath? Because a lot of times we wake up and there's that anxiety piece that's in there, or that worry that we don't want to acknowledge. We just want to push it to the side and keep going, because if I keep moving forward and I keep doing other things, I can just ignore it. But at some point, you really have to come to the point where you have to address that. If you're worried, why are you worried? What are you really worried about, and why? It's important to understand, and is worrying actually going to change my outcome? Not usually. But what steps can I take that will change the outcome of whatever that is that I'm fixated on? And then, do I feel like I'm having an ego moment today where I'm really in that sort of practical consciousness versus an enlightened stage when I'm willing to suspend judgment and share, love and compassion for others, versus sitting there and always being on the side, well, what about me? And what about me? And what about me? Well, this isn't working out for me. So I look at those kinds of things, because I know that that's where I need to work. And so that's where I apply kind of the questions I ask. And that may not be true for everybody else. But those are just some ideas of different things, depending on who you are and what kind of soul searching, dark night of the soul, questions that you've been dealing with, or processes you've been dealing with, whatever kind of programming. Those are just some different kinds of questions that may come up, and they don't all come up every day. But I know that if one of those does, then I can ask the hard question. I finally gotten to the point where I ask the really hard questions of myself. And you don't have to ask the hard questions of yourself, but at some point you will have to. If you're still hanging on to some of the worries and the self-talk, the negative self-talk and stuff like that, you are going to have to start asking hard questions. So I just wanted to throw those out there, because you don't have to be afraid of asking yourself the hard questions, because you will come up with the answer. And that's just part of introspection, right?
Right.
So then that leads us into setting intention for the day. So do you have anything else you want to add in terms of setting intention based on the questions you asked yourself?
I do. I want to add in there that I'll speak for myself. I'm coming from a place in my life now where I am not concerned about food. I'm not concerned about housing. I have a vehicle. I have a job. I have income. So I really would like to investigate in this conversation is, there was a time in my life where I didn't have all of the safety that I have now. I didn't have community. I didn't have food safety. I've been homeless before. I didn't always have a car that was running. So what are some of the steps that I took during that time to stay in a mindset of, how do I get what I need during the day? And I was really thinking about this morning, is there are places in our lives and I know that there are people that will be listening that are worried about food and that are worried about housing right now. And my heart aches for that. My heart aches for the people that are waking up and they're hungry and they don't have a home. So I'm really speaking from a place of, I have all of those things, and how can I have a positive attitude seems really, really easy. So how do we break this down to, I don't have everything that I need in life. So how do I actually stay positive? How do I set an intention? And I want to send out the invitation that there are people like us that are your community, and find the community where you live, find the resources. I'm taking a big pause because sometimes we don't have those things. Sometimes all we have is ourself and the connection to our ancestors and the connection to Creator is never broken. Sometimes it feels like it's very far away. So I'm hoping that through these platicas that we're having, that no matter what the situation that you're in, that the medicine that we're sharing is going to give you some resource on how to connect with your higher self, on how to connect with your ancestral lineages. I know that some of us wake up hungry, and I know that some of us don't have homes, and some of us are waking up and there's a war and a genocide around us. So I want to acknowledge that I am coming from a place of privilege in this moment. So I am hoping to share some of the medicine that's been shared with me when I didn't have all of those things. And these are some of the steps that I took and some of the teachings that were gifted to me during those dark times. So I really want to shift my focus to come into that place of teaching, that this is kind of where we can come into communion with the spirit realm, to ask for help and to expand our awareness and expand our consciousness of community, and that we really do heal when we're together. For me to do a podcast by myself would just not be as much fun, right? But to do it when we have other people's perspectives, and that's why we have guests on here, so we can get different perspectives of how did we get through those dark places? How did we get through those places when there were more lack than what I'm experiencing right now? So when we talk about setting intentions, if I'm intending to eat today, my focus is going to be on food. If I am intending to be in service, it's going to be like what we were just talking about, is checking in with my mind, checking in with my body, checking in with my pain or no pain. So when we are setting an intention, it needs to be based on and have an understanding of the needs that we have during the day. If it's food sovereignty, if it's our living situation, if it's being in service, if it's going out and doing community work, really knowing yourself is where my intention for this pratica is to really know yourself and what do you need, and acknowledging that. So I would like to share some of the things that were shared with me, and how do we get to those places? Like when everything is going wrong, when everything is going right, I'm still going to do the same things. I'm still going to have that desire to connect with Creator, to connect with the land, to connect with food, to connect with my body. So I brought in some of my teachings from Maestra CC, and I want to honor her in this, that she did teach me about the medicine wheel. It is from her grandmother, Casimira Rocha y Sanchez. And I will always honor my teachers. Some of these teachings have come from Maestro Laurencio, also, who is from Oaxaca. Without these teachings, I wouldn't be here on the planet. I wouldn't have the strength in my mind to still be here and doing this earth walk. I would have left. So when I look at the four directions, the four cardinal directions, and I look towards the east where the sun comes up, that's the place of new beginnings. So I'm going to ask myself, what are the new beginnings that I might be experiencing today? And I'm going to set my intention of maybe something new that might be coming in for me. Whether it's something new in my spiritual path or something new in my life. We recently have been replacing furniture. So I've taken down an altar. And so there's this whole blank space that I have there. So as I put it back together, I'm going to put it together on the new moon in a couple of days. I'm going to invite those energies in of newness, of renewal, of light, of the grandfather energies, of my breath. And this is all about receiving. What do I need to receive? So when I face the morning sun, I'm going to ask, what do I need to receive today? Can I call my energy back? Can I call my power back in this place? So then I'm going to look at the west direction. And that's the place of letting go. That's the place where the sun sets. That's the place of, in this tradition, of fire. And it's the fire in our heart. It's like, what have I been called to do? Every day, I want to make sure that I'm in agreement and in alignment with what Creator has asked me to do. I recognize that not everyone has that clear hearing. I do. I know exactly when I ask, I know exactly that I'm going to get my directions. I'm going to get the instructions. It might not be step by step, and I've had a few arguments with my guides about that, but I have a clear understanding and a clear knowing of what's in my way and what needs to move and what needs to go. So when I face that west direction, I know that I'm honoring my heart and my passions and my fires and the dreams that I had when I was a little child. I might not have understood them all, but what's in the way and what needs to let go, what needs to be released. So when we're facing the sun in the mornings, it's receiving. In the evenings, it's releasing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we're going to face the south direction, place of water. It is different in different traditions. In our tradition that I've been walking, this is the place of water, and it's the place of the mind. If we are having mitote, bad self-talk, if we're having a lot of garbage thoughts in our brain, we want to clear that. Drinking a big glass of water with the intention of, I want to clear my mind. I want to clear the thoughts that I'm having, and I just want to focus on the light this morning. I just want to focus on bringing that light in. This is the place of your internal power that you receive when you come here to earth. So inviting that to be churned up, inviting that to be stirred, and calling back your power, and only your power. Only calling your power, not anyone else's. Sometimes we admire people so much that we want to call their power to us. Don't do that. It doesn't belong to you. You are divine in your own right, and you are meant to be loved, and you're meant to love. And we have all of this power that belongs to us and doesn't belong to anyone else. If we walk in our authentic self, it starts when we get here. It starts in the mind, it goes to the heart, and then it accelerates and grows power in our belly. So we have our intuition here in the south direction. And then I'll face the north direction, and that's the place of mystery, right? It's the place of reflection. It's the place of death. It's the place of our genetic memories. These are some of the teachings that I received that really made sense to me. I'm like, oh, I am worthy. I can call on my angels and guides, and I really do have them, and they really are walking with me. So those are some of the things that I do when I look at how I'm setting up my day is, what am I receiving? What am I releasing? What kind of visions and dreams do I have? And recalling my DNA, my genetic memories, the mystery of life, the mystery of knowledge and wisdom. And how do I call that into my body? And it's really being open to all of those directions. And in the center is what they call the ometeo, which means two spirit. It's the masculine energies and the feminine energies. It's the taking care of it and taking action, making things move and caregiving of them. So when we have our visions and our dreams, we have to take actions in those. So going through the medicine wheel every morning, even in the evenings, just in a review of the day, is calling in those energies so that we are standing in a place of what do I want to call it? Harmony, right? Standing in that place of harmony with ourselves, but also being in the present moment and not letting all the other things affect that as much. That's it. That's all I have to say. I know that was a lot. But those are really some of the teachings that I was given that really let me solidify that I do belong here on the earth, and I do belong in doing the things that I'm doing in my community. When Creator tells me to stop doing those things or to change them, then I will. But in this moment in my life at 57, I'm here to share this knowledge. Maestra Cece shared it with us with a fierceness, with a power behind it, and with a knowing that everyone deserves to have these teachings. Everyone deserves to remember who the heck they are. I promise not to curse on here, so I do curse in real life, and I'm not going to do it on the podcast. So remember who you are, and this medicine wheel scanning, knowing who we are in the moment, helps us to remember who we are in the big picture of why we're here on the earth.
Excellent. So I'm gonna add to that with if that looking at a medicine wheel like that, because there sometimes that doesn't speak to you, to everyone. So I'll give you some perspective. The idea of four corners, the four aspects of the wheel, the four directions, whichever you want to do, that's all based in stability. Okay, so because a four is like a square, and a square is super, super stable. So even with Paula's Mexica tradition and speaking the way she's been given knowledge, you may also see this expressed in different ways. In Lakota tradition, that the medicine wheel is based on the four cardinal animal spirits, but they govern those similar powers in those corners. In pagan circles, whether that be witchery, Wicca, Druidry, doesn't matter, you pick any of the above, you're looking at calling the elements, so that the four corners are actually the elements. So earth, air, fire, and water. Earth is associated with stability. Fire with that passion and drive, creativity. Air is your mentality, your thought, how you bring your thoughts to manifestation. And water is the emotional piece that kind of ties it all together. So when you hear that, if you see a movie, or if you've heard other rituals, or if you've watched somebody work, that's why they're calling on those. So they're really just establishing four corners for stability purposes, and then tying all of the aspects of self together. If you look with angelic beings, sometimes you'll hear that referred to the crystalline grid, and you can actually associate with angelic beings in the crystalline grid. There's still the four corners. There's the east and the west and the north and the south, but then there's also above and below. So you actually have 6 grids, and then that creates sort of a 3-dimensional geometric figure that is reminiscent of the grid that protects the earth energetically. And all of those things do exactly the same thing that Paula was talking about, but sometimes different people like to visualize things a little differently. So you can actually work with any of those things. Essentially, it's about finding harmony between those things in that center. And when you're in the center of being, I know my guides are always talking to me about balance, 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 you know. And when you're in the center of being, in the center of that beingness, then that means that you haven't, you know, you are working carefully with your earth, your air, your fire, water, or your four, you know, whatever 4 things that you want to be that express that. And you're being able to pull those together to find that balanced beingness in the center. Likewise, you hear, you know, see the book, The 4 Agreements. Always there are 4, because that's stability. So that's where that idea of medicine wheel teaching comes to us, or just calling, or casting a circle, casting the corners, the crystalline grid. It's all essentially the same thing, but it just depends on how you want to visualize it for yourself, and then how you want to actively use it for yourself. And it's a way of understanding, if you put yourself, you're in the center of this circle or the center of this grid. And it's a way of being able to focus your intention into each of those areas and understand your place in reference to the space around you, and understanding how all of those directions impact your life, and knowing where not only you fit in that, but also how those aspects of life can bring parts to you that you think might be missing. And it's a way to center yourself and understand the directions that you work in. So I'll give a practical kind of example. If you're always working with your spirituality from an emotional perspective, everything is emotion, emotion, emotion. What will happen is you'll lose balance with the grounding aspect because you're so much in the emotional state that you start to lose the reason, and you start to lose the I don't want to say intellect, but you start to you lose the rationality a little bit, and you lose the groundingness with that. And so you have to be able to navigate life and process in all four of these directions, because we use these different components of us every day. We use spirit every day, even if we don't know it. We use security or groundedness every day, even if we don't know it. We use emotion every day. We use mind every day, mentation. We also use our energy every day, which we don't see. And so this, being able to visualize this in a circle or a grid or a wheel, will help you to be able to navigate that in a two-dimensional visualization or a three-dimensional visualization of how you stand in respect to the world around you or the universe around you, depending on what your perspective is. And then you can navigate it that way. So, I have friends who focus more on pagan tradition, and so they may use the aspects of different gods or beings, Odin or Freya or Astarte, whatever, in different places. They may use different trees to represent those things: the oak, the ash, the elm, all of the traditional sacred trees of the Druids. They might use it that way because, again, each of those things symbolizes those different areas because of the way those emblems or those gods, those deities, those figureheads, the way they fit in with angelic beings. Also seeing the same thing that Sandalphon is protector of the animals on the earth, that Metatron is protector of the crystalline grid in space. So that's the above and below, because they're twins. Looking at Michael and Gabriel, and whichever ones you want to put through there in terms of how they anchor those grids, because they all bring those same types of differing perspectives to the process. Because ultimately, humans are never one-dimensional. And this is a way to help us to stay centered within, but still be able to branch out and move forward into the areas that frighten us. And if you're an introvert and you don't feel like you have a community, and that was me for a really, really long time, at least a spiritual community. I had work community and other things, but not spiritual ones for sure. But if you're that introverted person and you don't have that in common, a lot of times it gives you opportunity to kind of move into investigation of different things so that you can learn different traditions. If you want to learn more about, sacred buffalo medicine, Tatanka, you want to learn about that, then that opens you up to groups of people who really help you to understand that, because now we're in the time that the fourth sacred white buffalo has been born in Yellowstone, and that ceremony was exceptionally powerful, because that brings in the fourth era, according to the Lakota peoples. And so it's super important because that's the period of change, and likewise, with the Diné or Navajo, if you prefer, I mean, they're talking about the seventh generation. And that is also very important. It's an important time, again, a time of change. And I think we'd all agree that we're in a time of change. It's pretty apparent that we're in a time of change.
Absolutely.
So now is the time when all of these energies are going to feel weird. And everybody's going to go, well, this felt normal to me, and now nothing feels normal. So center yourself within these aspects of the medicine or energies or whatever you want to call it. You can even represent it with crystals. If you like to work with crystals, you can literally set up the corners with crystals and then work within the energies of those specific stones to help you navigate that kind of thing. Most importantly, though, when you set intention, and this is something I think that's just kind of important to do, and it just helps us to be open, not only to owning ourselves, but also realizing that it while it's important for it to be about us, it's also about everyone as well. To be able to remember to say, when you set your intention for that day, or you set your, as you work through this process, it's for my highest good and the highest good of all. Because this is really about all of us as earth beings transcending this downtrodden matrix that we've been in for so long, and uplifting as a people, all of us as one, uplifting as a people, because that helps us all. And it helps us with all of those aspects of abundance and security and creativity and confidence and speaking our truth and insight and awareness, and then our connection to the divine. It helps us with all of that. So just for my highest good and the highest good of all.
Perfect.
So I've tried to get in the habit of saying that every day, just to remind me of where I fit into the scheme of things. And I am going to cough. Sorry. Our humidity in the desert makes me sound like a barking dog. I apologize.
I love that our teachings are so cross-cultural. With Maestra Cece's teaching, she was Lakota also. And so we have some of those in there. So honoring the animals in each direction, honoring birds in each direction, stones, archangels. Quite often we are traveling with our community. And so we have baskets that we use, or a backpack. And someone will say, okay, we're going to set the altar, and there's 4 different colors of beans. And it's so beautiful because the intention is the harmony of bringing all of that for anchors, right? When I teach classes, I always pick 4 people that are what I call the 4 pillars. And they are the people that help me watch everyone and to make sure that everyone has what they need, as emotionally, spiritually, even physically. But there's always 4. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, it's the 4 chambers of the heart. That's really what we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We are the heart of the earth. We're the moving parts. What we do, what we say, how we behave, how we respond affects the earth. So taking all of the things that we're learning here in Earth School and transmuting and transferring all of that back into love, all of the hard things that we're going through, all of the crap that people send to us, all the thoughts that people send to us, I feel them. I know that they come towards me. I'm not going to send it back to you in the same jerkish way that you sent it to me. It's going to be sent back to Creator, turned into love, so that you can receive your blessings. Sometimes people have envy, and it can create an energy. So I say all of that to make sure that we are including, like what you said, not only the highest good for ourselves, but also for our communities, for the world. It is part of our job to make sure that the dirty things, the ugly things get turned back into love. And I think that is a great daily practice to make sure that we add that into our prayers. It's not just for me. This is for humanity.
Yeah.
I post often, just pray for humanity, because if we lose that, we're done.
Yeah, compassion is everything.
It's
absolutely
absolutely
everything. And for some reason, and I don't want this to sound political or anything else, but for whatever reason, humanity has felt the need to constantly point out that I don't have this and they have that, and that's not fair. And it's with everything.
Yeah.
But the reality is compassion costs you nothing. If you have compassion for the other, you're not, versus sitting in judgment. It's easy to judge somebody else, but you don't know where their moccasins have walked. You don't know.
You don't.
You can think you do, but you don't. And truthfully, it's easy to say, oh, well, that's easy, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is if it were easy, you'd already have done it, and you haven't done it.
Yeah.
Not all, it's just like you talked about having times when you didn't have all that you needed. And I think in some of us, those are physical things we don't have, and safety things we don't have. And sometimes it's emotional things or mental things we don't have that help us stabilize, or
Yeah.
it's health that we don't have that destabilizes us, or
Mm-hmm.
it's fear that we do have that destabilizes us. But compassion costs us nothing. And it's so much easier to have compassion and divine love for another person who's struggling than it is to sit in judgment. Because when we sit in judgment, you can say, well, it's not fair that they got that and I didn't get this.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is you, if you keep focusing on that, all you keep thinking about is what you don't have.
Yeah.
But what about what you do have? I'm grateful that I woke up today. I'm grateful that I have 2 dogs that give me joy every moment of every day, that make me laugh. I'm grateful that I have patients that I can help. I'm grateful that I can feed myself today. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head that keeps us safe in the weather and the heat. And I have a means to get to work, and that I have funds that come into the bank. I'm grateful that I can share sound with people who are struggling with addiction. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be grateful for everything, but be grateful for something.
Yeah. What do you share with your community? What you work with people that are in addiction recovery? What kind of things do you share with them, as far as a mind space?
That's a really good question. So,
Yeah.
so just for some context, I volunteered to do this. And so I'm not on the staff of the behavioral health staff that works with them. I go in simply to do some of the groups to allow them a space for meditation. And I also do sound therapy with them. So I do a combination of meditation and sound therapy. And when I started out doing it, I was just trying different things, different types of meditations, mostly to get people to relax and just to be open originally. And then when I started adding in the sound tools, very clearly it became known to me that we like that, do that, do that, do that. So then that's
Yeah.
when I started featuring sound bath, but I also add a lot more meditation stuff. And as I've grown and gotten more comfortable in that space, because I had no experience in addiction recovery at all. For all of my time in the medical world, I've had no experience in that world. So I was a little intimidated by that because I didn't know what would be acceptable behavior on my part, to be there. And so I kept it kind of just as a tool. Now that's not the case. So we get in and and I get them in their meditative state and we do the sound baths. When we're done, we actually have these conversations about, we start out with like, what colors did you visualize? What did you see? How did you
Mm,
feel?
mm,
And then we start talking about all of these things we're kind of talking about today, about balance and how you connect. And what I find is that so many of these people are very, very energetically and spiritually aware.
mm.
So it just goes to show you again, and not to beleaguer this idea of, we have to be compassionate and not judge people. But a lot of times I think historically there's been assumptions about folks struggling in the addictive process, no matter what it is, whether it's a substance or something else. Okay. Sometimes it's a behavior, right? But people with that just simply, they weren't disciplined enough, or they didn't have enough dedication to it, or they weren't taking it seriously, or things like that. When in fact they're highly energetically connected and highly spiritually connected. And so sometimes perhaps it's coping skill of trying to deal with it because they didn't have people
Yeah.
like us to say, ooh, this is how you
Yeah.
work with this energy. This is how,
Yeah.
So I find now that's how I kind of do it. We bring it up and we talk about meditation and why it's so important. And now as I do, guided meditation stuff with him, we talk about how to different chakras, different emotions. We talk about releasing negativity. We talk about releasing the things that don't serve us. We talk about empowering ourselves and embracing. We talk about finding confidence in ourselves. And so it varies from week to week. When I go in, I don't have a script. I just let spirit do the guiding. So I just get started, and even the tones that come out with the bowls, I'm not driving that bus. I just let the universe drive the bus, right? So, and it's different every time. And it's interesting to me how it comes out because I'm feeling it too. But they get that lovely vibration. We talk about sound and we talk about vibration and we talk about what vibration really does to the anatomy of the body. And then we talk about what it does to the thought process in the body, what it does to the emotions of the body. And so working through all of that, we actually have some very wonderfully spiritual conversations without getting into specifics. And then I'll do kind of what I do here is I'll talk a little bit about different Buddhist principles that follow with that, and Hindu principles that follow with that, and different pagan traditions and different indigenous traditions and different, even typical, sort of religious thought processes in organized religion. We'll talk about a little bit of all of that if it comes up, and about how that simply provides them an opportunity to begin to find their own and visualize their own empowerment in their safe place.
Yeah.
And we talk about how to pull that safe place in, even when they don't have me there talking and playing the bowls, about how to bring that in. And there's some really interesting perspectives and thoughts and discussion that come out of the participants in those groups. It's really fun. I really enjoy it now.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. It's really cool.
It sounds like to me that even though you were intimidated in the beginning because of your own experience or not having any experience, that you are bringing up a place of validation that we are all divine children.
Absolutely, we are.
No matter what we have going on in our lives,
Right.
no matter what we're experiencing. And I too find that addictive people, I've been addicted myself, that we have a strength, and those are coping skills. I try to drink away these gifts. I try to drink away this connection that I have, the things that I hear and the things that I see and the things that I feel. It didn't go away.
No.
It just wouldn't go away. So I love that we are on the planet right now and we can provide a place that people can see their value.
And I think the other thing too is that a lot of us, depending on what kind of environment you grew up in or what kind of culture, society you were in, a lot of us, if we had those gifts, I'm speaking from personal experience, you kind of had to keep them in the closet because they just were not, they just weren't, you could be labeled with many ugly words, that were ended up with results somewhat short of, slightly of being shunned or burned at the stake, depending on where you live, right? But with that, the energies now, this beautiful time that we're moving into this age of Aquarius, these energies are meant for us to embrace this stuff. And so just like I see in the patient populations I work with who have all of these autoimmune sort of mediated disorders and chronic pain disorders and things like that, they're all highly sensitive people. 95% of them are highly sensitive people. And I see that also with what I'm in this group of folks who are in recovery, is that there's a lot of highly sensitivities. And now is the time that we can express this stuff. We don't have to hold on to it. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had this podcast because I would have thought that I would have been shunned out of my profession for daring to speak about these things, even though this is the real me and the other part's just the academic me,
Right.
Right. It's a different time. There's no excuse for us not to just find this love space that we're given and realize how amazing we are. Are the times easy? No, they never are. When you're in periods of change historically on this earth, change periods are not easy for the people who live there, who incarnate at that time. They're just not, because there's the earth has some energetic chaos. It's 120-degree weather or earthquakes or 12 hurricanes in the span of what, 6 months or something. I mean, it's all of that stuff because the earth, she's kind of shaking the fleas a little bit. She's getting them off, right?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
has a right to grow and adapt with the energies too. She has a crystal in
Mhm.
center. Crystals vibrate. So she's going to change. And we're all, our whole solar system is kind of moving within the Milky Way. So we're getting,
Mhm.
if you think about our solar system itself, so Earth and all the other planets and the sun, is if we're a starship like the Enterprise and we're moving to a different part of space, well, think about kind of friction and all that kind of stuff that's happening too. The
Yeah.
solar flares and all of those kinds of things. So it's not an easy time energetically for anybody in terms of the change we're going through and the feelings of uncertainty. But the being afraid of it all is not really gonna serve that process.
Yeah.
Just remember, you really are a divine being who decided that you were tough enough spiritually to want to incarnate on earth at this beautiful time of change where we can really make a difference for the future for a long, long time. And you have that power within you. And isn't that just amazing? So instead of looking at ourselves and going, well, I can't do anything. Yes, you can. You are a powerful being. You just have to believe it.
Yeah.
And you've been taught by other people who in years past when the energies weren't supporting this. Oh, yes, be afraid. Don't do that. Don't speak. Don't be heard. Just be quiet. All those things. We don't have to do that anymore. You be who you want
Yeah.
to. If you want to walk around in flip flops and tie dye all day, you do your thing. Right?
It reminds me that when I was in traveling this summer, that I did 4 Olympias in my pajamas. We don't need all of these special things.
Exactly. Well, I mean, even it's just true. Yeah.
It's
I
one
mean,
time I was asked to do a bone reading. I'm like, I don't have my set here. Let me go out. Let me go out
forage for
for,
bones.
yeah, I went out into the forest and I said, I need something to represent all of these items. And we found it. And it was one of the most powerful
Mhm.
bone readings I had ever done.
Yeah.
Even I was like, oh, that was cool. That was super
Right.
cool.
It's really about knowing and more importantly, believing that
Mhm.
you are that divine child of the creator.
That's
And
right.
it makes it, when you give yourself permission to know that and to say, hey, I can love me just as I am. I don't have to look like you. I don't
Yeah.
have to do what you do. I can do it my way. I can be what I want to be. I can work through things. Yeah, you can. Just be okay. It's okay to be okay with yourself. It's okay to love yourself
Yeah.
for exactly who you are. You don't have to apologize. And yeah, there's going to be
Yeah.
people around you who are, I mean, we know for a fact that there are people who are trying to take us into the past again,
Mhm.
intentionally. We're not going. Let's be us. And if that
Yeah.
means you want to do Olympias in your pajamas, I think you should.
I
And
did.
I never thought that I would ever, I was one of those formal clinicians. I was always dressed well, in good trousers and good shoes and stuff. And now I wear polo shirts or t-shirts and trail pants and tennis shoes to work every day. And you know what? It doesn't stop me from helping people and healing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or from sounding intelligent. I can still, my hair's in a ponytail every day, just like it is today. It's like, whatever,
Yeah.
just be you. It's okay. And that authenticity of self, that's the soul self. That's the beautiful part. We got to embrace that. And it's good. It's good. You were powerful enough as a spirit to say, I'm going to incarnate right now so that I'm here in 2024 where all this craziness goes down. And I'm gonna help this process.
Yeah.
Hey, never doubt your power if you did that. You know, it's it's all good. And I guess if I had one wish for everyone, because it took me so long to get rid of certain worries and fears. If I had one wish for everybody, it would be that everybody could just let their fears go. The fear of the present, the fear of the future, and to quit worrying about the past and just let it
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
and move forward however you want to in your own creativity and your own love of life, your own love of self, your own love of whatever your creative endeavor is. be happy, right? And
Yeah.
just move
Yeah.
forward, because that energy alone is infectious and it's beautiful and it's uplifting. It's the power of positivity. I think I stole that from somebody who wrote a book many years ago, but it's the power of positivity, and not getting hung up in the negative stuff, because we do that so
Right.
easily. And it's a lot of it's just habit. It doesn't have to be that
Well,
way.
I think
Yeah.
we need the polarity of, whether we call it positive or negative. We need the polarity to gather our tools. But we have been talking for a little over an hour, and we have
Paul,
so much more to talk about.
for those who haven't figured this out, Maestra Paula is the timekeeper, the official timekeeper of the Love and Lightning podcast, because I'm not doing it.
Oh,
So, so we still have a few more just things to discuss. So apparently there will be a part
absolutely.
3.
Yep. There'll be part 4, part 5.
part 32.
Well, I think that because we are in the healing communities, we have a direct interaction with the things that are going on spiritually right now. Plus having a deep connection to Creator and to the earth at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and close the sacred circle. And it's a reminder that you are sacred light, that you are sacred fire, that you are the sacred waters, and you are the sacred earth. And Ometeo, and so be it. And so it is.
And so it is. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you who listen in for us. We are so very grateful that you're here. And please check us out on YouTube if you want to see our faces, go through some of our crazy antics, or at least my crazy antics. Master Paula is she's very cultural and very put together, and I'm just a little bit of the whack job, but that's okay. It's all right. I'm embracing it. But thanks so much. Come in and see us. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Please, if you want to help us out on this podcast, you can subscribe to this. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much. We want you to go in love, know that you're loved, that you're loved. You're loved by us. You're loved by the Creator. You're loved by the universe. And that's where we are. That's where we're going to be. So peace and love. And remember, the lightning just kind of keeps us healthy and aware, So thanks so much. And we're going to say bye-bye.
Bye.